Jin So-won was born with a curse disguised as a gift, a perfect memory that could retain anything down to the last word. When the Murray Alliance stood on the brink of annihilation against the demonic cult, they made him their living archive. Every secret technique, every forbidden cultivation art, he memorized them all to keep their legacy from dying. The Alliance won, and then they killed him for it. A man who knows everything is too dangerous to let live, faces death, filled with regret as the bracelet on his wrist begins to glow. He thinks he should have chosen strength to protect his brothers instead of seeking safety. Suddenly, a bright light appears, and a voice calls him weak, ordering him to stand up. A wooden sword strikes his head, and the voice remarks that even his younger brothers endured longer than he did. He grips the wooden sword and realizes he is reliving a cursed memory. With clenched teeth, he understands that somehow he has returned to the past. The pain hits him fully, and he yells as he realizes he even remembers the suffering. Looking up, he sees his attacker and friends staring at him in shock. He is stunned to notice his younger appearance. Then the protagonist recognizes the place as the training grounds of his old sect. Looking to his side, he sees his two closest friends, both clearly worried. At that moment, Jin blushes as he realizes they are still alive. Without hesitation, he moves toward them in an instant. He embraces them tightly, leaving them completely confused. The girl asks what is happening, and he recalls how she died in the future. His other friend questions him as well, and he remembers his death too. Around them, the younger disciples watch in confusion. His companions notice he is crying, while the young man wonders if this is a death flashback. Even so, he smiles, believing this memory is one worth reliving. The pair remain puzzled, unsure what is going through his mind. Then he pokes the girl's cheek and mentions that he even missed her yappings. After that, he pinches his friend's cheek, remembering how he used to embarrass him as a child. The attacker calls his name and asks if he is acting strangely out of fear, then threatens that if he refuses to fight, his friends will take his place. The protagonist becomes annoyed, complaining that even this memory had to include such an unpleasant person. This man is Cho Young, a wealthy young master who used duels to bully others. Jin picks up his wooden sword and accepts the duel, recalling how they could not resist in the past. He rises, thinking that if the heavens granted him this chance, he must use it to take revenge. He smiles confidently and prepares to strike, while his opponent charges forward, convinced of victory. However, Jin's gaze is sharp and focused, revealing he is no longer the same boy. The young man uses the same technique that once defeated him, known as the Three Glories Sword. This martial art targets the eyes, making it difficult for young disciples to defend against. His friends are terrified as the protagonist remembers how he once failed to avoid it, thinking that his opponent is insignificant compared to the demonic cult. The attacker is stunned to see his move stop so easily. Jin recalls the countless scrolls and techniques he was forced to memorize in the future. He remembers the desperation of learning everything just to survive in the library. Compared to those martial arts, his opponent's technique feels trivial. The knowledge he gained flows through him, overwhelming his enemy. His eyes sharpen as he analyzes every movement. He then evades the next strike with speed and precision. To counterattack, he uses the basic form of his sect's technique. The guild heir coughs up blood, shocked to be struck by the lesser heaven sword technique. Our boy, on the other hand, smiles with satisfaction at finally striking his aggressor, finding it even more rewarding that he used his own sect's technique to defeat him. His friends are shocked at the sight of blood, while the attacker shouts in anger over what just happened. The guild heir becomes furious from the humiliation he is enduring and threatens the young man, demanding to know if he understands the consequences of his actions. Jin simply stands there, confused, as his enemy lies defeated on the ground. One of the younger disciples nearly cries from emotion as he watches, and soon after, the children celebrate their older brother's victory. The protagonist grows slightly flustered from all the attention and praise he receives. He smiles, thinking that he has finally taught the bully a lesson and can now move on without regrets. Suddenly, he is punched in the face, catching him completely off guard. His friend shouts, asking if he has lost his mind for doing something like that. She shakes him and scolds him, warning that the guild may cut their funding because of his actions. He feels the sting of the blow and begins to wonder why it hurts so much. At that moment, he realizes the disciples are already struggling with little food, and the situation could worsen. Then his friend, with a fierce expression, insists that he must fix this immediately. Without hesitation, she punches him again, accusing him of speaking nonsense. The young man collapses to the ground, completely knocked out by his own sectmate. As his consciousness fades, he finally understands that he has truly returned to the past. The scene begins with an old medicine cabinet filled with drawers. Soon after, he wakes up covered in bandages, wearing a mischievous grin. He opens his eyes and realizes he is in the infirmary, after being knocked unconscious by his friend. Lying in bed, the young man begins to recall how everything started with the return of the demonic cult. In his future, the Murray Alliance fought against them but ultimately lost the Great War. His sect, which was part of the alliance, was nearly wiped out. Amid the chaos, he was chosen because of his photographic memory. His task was to memorize all the Alliance's secret books and manuals, and he tried his best not to forget a single word. In exchange, he requested that his sect brothers be spared from the battlefield. However, the Alliance leaders betrayed him and eliminated him in the end. He believed he had died, but when he opened his eyes, he found himself back in his younger body. Along with his memories, All the knowledge from those secret manuals had returned with him. It was by using that knowledge that he managed to defeat the bully who once tormented him. Back in the infirmary, the protagonist wonders how all of this is even possible. He notices his body is young again, yet the bracelet on his wrist came with him from the future. This is the blue dragon bracelet, which he took from an enemy, and it began to glow at the moment of his death. The young man wonders if the bracelet is what brought him back, when suddenly someone shouts his name from outside. Shortly after, the bully's father arrives in a rage, threatening to cut off the sect's financial support. The woman tries to calm the situation, explaining that the boy was also injured during the duel. However, the man refuses to listen and demands punishment for the protagonist. The sect leader apologizes humbly, while the wealthy man continues to berate him. Jin recalls the grim future and the destruction he witnessed. He remembers seeing his friends and partner lifeless, realizing that this new chance cannot be wasted. He also remembers how he was betrayed and abandoned by his own allies. Filled with anger, he breaks the object he was holding in his mouth. The young man then rises and throws a bundle out the window, determined to take action. Inside the package is a martial arts manual, part of his plan. With a confident smile, he decides that since he has been given another chance, he will no longer hold back. Outside, the woman thanks the wealthy man for letting the matter go for now, though he remains furious. Suddenly, the protagonist appears on the roof and asks if they were looking for him. He jumps down and introduces himself with a smile, using the nickname given to him by the man. Both are shocked by his sudden appearance. The bully's father grabs him and demands to know if he was the one who hurt his son. Jin responds that they are not that far apart in age, making such a question unnecessary. This remark confuses both the young man and the guild leader. Realizing his current age, he changes the subject and questions the commotion. The man accuses him of using dirty tricks and claims his son was merely passing through. The protagonist replies that the man's son had been bullying several younger disciples for days. With a serious expression, he states that if the heir is truly that weak, he will never enter the Marine Academy. The father becomes furious at his audacity, while his aide attempts to calm him down. The man then grabs Jin and threatens him, saying the sect will suffer the consequences. The young man turns his head slightly and questions what responsibility he is supposed to bear. The guild leader laughs, claiming the Taiyul sect is already struggling and that he can easily find another partner. He finishes by warning that without his support, everyone there will starve. It is explained that the sect belongs to the 108 Peaks, a division of the Murim Alliance, which allows them to recommend one disciple to the Murim Academy without testing. However, the bully is not truly part of the sect, but the wealthy heir of a merchant guild. To secure a position, his father paid for him to join as a disciple. Knowing this, the protagonist calmly tells the man to proceed with his threat. With a confident smile, he declares that he will take full responsibility and challenges the man to withdraw his support. He then grabs the guild leader's wrist, showing no fear, and questions why the man would choose such a weak sect for his son. The father is left speechless by his defiance. Jin recalls how, in his past life, his sect obeyed every demand, yet still suffered betrayal after helping the man's son. He steps closer and whispers that only the Taiyul sect can save him. However, he knows that in the future, the guild still abandoned them. The leader is stunned by his confidence. Jin then turns away and walks off, stating that relying on others for protection is meaningless and that strength must be earned independently. Enraged, the man lunges at him, but the protagonist remains calm, having already learned this lesson once before. He then begins to consider how he will grow stronger, though he has yet to form a clear plan. The scene shifts to a mountain landscape at dawn. Within these mountains lies a dark cave filled with strange glowing webs, where the protagonist heads to achieve his goal. He knows it will not be easy with his sect's weak techniques, so his only option is to obtain immense power through a legendary elixir. Fortunately, he memorized the Alliance's secret elixir records. His plan is to use that knowledge to gather every elixir for himself. However, the guardian of the cave is far more unsettling than he remembered. Even so, he prepares himself, knowing that obtaining the 10,000-year-old fire ginseng is the first step. The young man moves forward and attempts to attack using his sect's sword technique, but stops midway, realizing that both his strength and skill are still lacking. Instead, he picks up a wooden torch and considers another approach. With determination, he recalls a lesson from his past life, understanding that mastery of the sword alone is not enough. The protagonist no longer cares about honor or the traditional path of martial arts. He believes that victory is the only thing that matters, regardless of the method used. Clenching his fist, he feels grateful for the knowledge he has gained, and with a faint smile acknowledges the unintended help he received from the Murim Alliance. According to the records, the spider guarding the cave is vulnerable to fire. Taking advantage of this weakness, he easily defeats the creature using flames. The firelight then reveals the prize hidden within the cave. With the guardian gone, he finally approaches the ginseng. The young man reaches out to take the plant, but suddenly stops and decides that he must proceed with caution before claiming it. He then screams in despair, claiming that the result is far from enough. He complains that even after consuming such a rare herb, his internal energy has barely improved. The young man criticizes his sect's method, stating that it produces only a negligible amount of energy. With his hands pressed against the ground, he grows completely frustrated with his lack of progress. He falls into despair, realizing that at this rate he will not be able to face the trials ahead. Lying on the cave floor, he understands that he cannot protect his sect like this. In his memories, he sees his friend being used as a shield during the Great War, and recalls his companions vowing that in this life they would not be lost in vain. Witnessing their tragic fate, he concludes that the only way to save them is to enter the academy. However, he scratches the ground in frustration, acknowledging that with his current strength he would not even qualify for admission. The young man cries out in despair, convinced that if things continue this way, nothing will change and the future will repeat itself. At that moment, a drop of mysterious liquid falls from the cave ceiling. Lying there, he thinks that what he truly needs is more energy and a stronger elixir. Suddenly, an idea forms in his mind as he recalls his enemy's elixir. In the past, the bully's father spent a fortune to acquire a rare pill for his son. However, just one day before the heir was meant to consume it, the elixir disappeared without a trace. Since that event has not yet occurred, he realizes he still has a chance to act and seize it. With a confident expression, he believes he can identify the thief, reasoning that every crime leaves behind clues. The protagonist dives into his memories to unravel the mystery. He searches through his recollections and focuses on the Moram Alliance's monthly reports. His mind functions like a vast library, and a trail of connections begins to form. These clues guide him through endless corridors of memory as he continues his search. He is certain that if he examines everything carefully, the answer will reveal itself. With that, he reviews entry logs and mission reports, gradually piecing together the information. Names and events begin to connect, and eventually a primary suspect emerges. Other renowned warriors are also linked to the case, further strengthening his deductions. After an extensive search, he finally discovers the clue he needed within a scroll. Clasping his hands, the protagonist concentrates, making full use of the knowledge he accumulated. He realizes that his ability as a living archive is finally proving valuable. As the bracelet on his wrist begins to glow, he decides that he will claim the snowplum pill for himself. Standing over the defeated monster, the young man wonders what is happening as the blue dragon bracelet emits a powerful light. Suddenly, the bracelet releases a strange energy, startling him as he struggles to understand what is occurring. The energy moves toward the spider's body as if it possesses a will of its own. It begins extracting something from within the creature, glowing red. The bracelet appears to absorb the energy from the monster's inner core. He is shocked to realize that it is draining the spider's core directly. Outside the cave, a burst of light startles nearby birds. Inside, the creature's energy begins flowing into the young man's body. The dark aura from the core surrounds him as he absorbs it, and he feels immense power surging through him. His eyes glow with a blue light, revealing the strength he has gained. He laughs in disbelief at the sudden increase in power. He recalls that this bracelet was a trophy from a battle he nearly lost, originally kept as a reminder of that victory. Now, however, it is activated unexpectedly. Clenching his fist, he feels the energy being refined by the bracelet. It purifies the spider's corrupted power and channels it into his body. As a result, the purified energy merges with his sect's cultivation method. He rejoices, realizing that his internal energy has significantly increased and that fate has not abandoned him. Meanwhile, at a banquet, guests discuss the rare elixir purchased by the guild leader. A young master boasts that his father acquired an exceptional medicine just for him. Hong Sarian, the sect leader's daughter, appears visibly annoyed by the conversation. She wonders where the protagonist is and what he has been doing. She recalls the day of the duel and thinks that she should have intervened instead of letting him face the consequences alone. She suspects that he may have left because of how he was treated. The guild heir continues speaking, mocking the protagonist and calling him foolish. Suddenly, one of the sect's younger disciples runs toward her, calling her name. The child arrives excitedly, carrying a plate of food meant for her. The other children gather around happily, while the young master lies unconscious nearby, having been dealt with by them. It becomes clear that the younger disciples took revenge on the bully who tormented them. The young master eventually storms off in anger, vowing that he will seek revenge once the banquet ends. The young woman scolds the children for bringing food outside instead of eating properly, but one of them notices her expression and asks if she is thinking about her older brother. The others tease her, pointing out how quiet she becomes whenever she thinks about him, leaving her flustered. They mention that they plan to save his favorite food for when he returns. Hearing this, the pink-haired girl smiles mischievously, as if an idea has formed. Without warning, she begins eating the food they had saved. She declares that if they do not eat it now, she will finish everything herself. Alarmed, the children rush to eat as quickly as possible. The young woman laughs at the chaos, yet still wonders where her friend has gone and why he disappeared. She mutters that he is an idiot for making everyone worry. Night falls and the celebration continues under lantern-lit skies in the guild's courtyard. The guild leader drinks and celebrates with his guests, while the heir enjoys himself with friends. A dancer performs to entertain the crowd. A masked figure moves swiftly across the rooftops, taking advantage of the distraction. The intruder skillfully avoids an incoming energy attack as he approaches his true objective. Beneath the mask, he appears confident in his plan. It is revealed that this man is Jiang Mok, a notorious thief who infiltrates the guild's vault and steals the elixir. Upon opening the container, he admires the valuable pill from the Manhwa sect. Overwhelmed with excitement, he trembles as he gazes at the treasure he has obtained. He celebrates, declaring that this prize will allow him to master a new technique. However, just as he prepares to escape, someone appears behind him. The thief turns, realizing he is no longer alone. In that instant, a stranger emerges and subdues him with a single swift and precise strike. He takes the box from the fallen thief and apologizes for his actions. Holding the pill, he expresses regret toward the defeated thief, but insists that he truly needs the item. With a determined expression, he holds the box firmly, emphasizing its importance. The scene then shifts to a few days before the theft of the snowplum pill. Inside a shop filled with hunting equipment, a man stands behind the counter. The shopkeeper notices someone entering and looks toward the door. The protagonist steps inside and says he has heard that rare items are sold there. He then asks, with a sly smile, if the shopkeeper sells traps designed for people. The man pauses, finding the request unusual. He boasts that his shop offers the finest goods in the region, except for traps meant for humans. In response, the young man places a pouch of money on the counter and requests the strongest traps available. He specifies that he needs something both sensitive and powerful. With a sharp look, he explains that he wants a trap capable of completely eliminating its target. The shopkeeper hesitates, questioning whether he should proceed with such a transaction. Returning to the present, the stranger quietly observes the thief he has defeated. The man pulled his mask and remarks that he expected far more from someone known as a famous thief. With a victorious smile, the stranger admires the box containing the valuable prize. Suddenly, someone lands nearby and praises him, addressing him as senior brother. Two men appear, known as the Five Swords of King Shan, and congratulate him. One of them suggests that they should first inspect the elixir. The box is opened, revealing the shining pill inside. Both men are amazed by the item, but the protagonist points out something unusual about it. Hearing this, they become confused, unable to grasp his meaning. Without warning, the young man moves swiftly as a voice calls out, demanding to know who is there. In an instant, he snatches the box, leaving one of the men stunned by his speed. The older man immediately orders his partner to pursue the thief who stole their elixir. The other swordsman charges forward, declaring that taking what does not belong to him will bring consequences. As he flees, the young man calls them shameless thieves, arguing that they were the ones who stole it first. He evades their attacks as a chase begins through the forest. One of the swordsmen lunges with a powerful strike, but the protagonist dodges easily, causing the blade to slam into the ground. The young man pauses briefly and sarcastically warns his opponent to watch his step. At that moment, one of the traps he set snaps shut around the warrior's leg. The swordsman cries out in agony as the device clamps down on him, while the protagonist watches without emotion. The injured man breaks into a cold sweat as his scream echoes through the dark forest. His companion calls out in concern, but the young man calmly states that he had already warned him about the danger. Enraged, the remaining swordsman accuses him of cowardice for relying on tricks. He charges forward, demanding that the masked figure reveal his identity. The young man turns and mockingly asks if he is being addressed. He then questions whether the warrior expects him to reveal his master and sect. The protagonist then introduces himself as the new owner of the snowplum elixir. The scene shifts as it is explained that he uncovered everything by analyzing records. He searched for martial artists who experienced sudden increases in strength, which led him to these two men. Realizing this, the swordsmen are shocked and question how he knows their identities. The young man confirms that he is fully aware of who they are, prompting one of them to issue threats. In anger, the man warns him of the wrath of the Kangshan sect and the Murim alliance. The protagonist responds mockingly, asking whether one thief can accuse another of stealing. The protagonist's eyes widen as he observes his opponent's determination. The man slams his fist against the ground and shouts that such tricks will not defeat him. Suddenly, hidden mechanisms activate, sending multiple traps flying toward the masked young man. The attacker continues threatening him, while his partner praises their strategy. The protagonist pauses briefly, appearing to consider his next move. Then, without warning, he turns and runs, prompting the men to question if he is retreating. They immediately give chase, though one warns the other to stay alert for traps. The older swordsman reassures him, explaining that they only need to follow the exact path the young man took. As they pursue him, the partner praises his intelligence. The two carefully trace his footsteps through the grass without deviating. Smiling confidently, they mock him, claiming his tricks are useless. Suddenly, the young man leaps and throws something onto the path, causing an explosion. The pair laugh, believing he is cornered, but the protagonist stands balanced on a single stone within the dangerous area. He looks down, momentarily surprised by their strategy. Without realizing it, one of the swordsmen steps off the safe path. The protagonist watches silently as events unfold. In an instant, dozens of traps snap shut simultaneously, capturing both warriors. Their reflections flash across the blades as they are caught off guard. The two collapse, defeated, unable to comprehend what just happened. The young man approaches and admits they were more capable than expected. He explains that surviving required absolute precision in following his steps. One of the fallen swordsmen calls him insane, insisting such movement is impossible. The man then demands to know how he managed such precision through the trap-filled terrain. The young man calmly replies that it was all due to his exceptional memory. He finishes them off, stating that his memory is the only gift he has ever received from the heavens. With a final strike, the two swordsmen meet their end in the darkness of the forest. The scene shifts to a luxurious setting where the Taiwul sect of Hefei is mentioned. A composed man holds a teacup as he converses with an elder. This man is Jugi Somyoung, the chief strategist of the Murim alliance. The elder Namgung Taiwan confirms the topic and notes that many powerful sects have recently emerged. He suggests that it may be time to replace one of the 10 Dorichi peaks. The strategist assumes he is referring to the Choljeom sect. The elder offers tea and mentions rumors that the strategist supports that sect. Juge Somyong recalls that a peak can only be replaced if a severe offense is committed. The elder reveals that the Taiyuel sect is exploiting its special admission privileges. He explains that they are using this advantage for business purposes. The strategist reacts with surprise, questioning whether they are abusing their authority. With a sly smile, the elder implies that greed is driving their actions. Elsewhere, an inspector raises a similar concern, questioning whether the sect is misusing its status. The scene shifts again to the guild, where a bird observes the surroundings from above. Inside, the guild leader sits with the inspector, attempting to explain himself. He nervously insists that there is no misunderstanding and that he is not seeking a place among the 108 peaks. The inspector responds that such privileges were granted to honor those who fought in the past. As he pours tea, he remarks that it is disheartening to see those values fading. Meanwhile, the protagonist sits alone outside after the banquet. Closing his eyes, he begins absorbing the energy from the elixir he consumed. Blue energy flows through his body as his strength steadily increases. Clenching his fist, he realizes that the elixir has granted him more than 30 years' worth of internal energy. With a satisfied smile, he acknowledges that he has now surpassed the power he possessed in his previous life. Rising to his feet, the protagonist begins walking through the guild's corridors. Arriving in the room, he finds one of the younger disciples asleep at the table. The boy wakes up in surprise and is overjoyed to see that the master has finally returned. He says that the master had been gone for days and that he feared something terrible had happened. The child seems confused by the sudden request, but explains that the kitchen is already closed. The protagonist then offers a handful of coins, stating that he will pay for everything in advance. The young disciple becomes excited and runs off to wake the cook. Watching him leave, the protagonist smiles and thinks that money truly influences everything. He recalls how he previously used the blue dragon bracelet to earn money. The artifact was not limited to monsters, as it could extract life force from any living being. Using this power, he hunted a tiger and converted its energy into internal strength. He remembers visiting a shop to sell the tiger pelts he obtained. The young man realizes he has found a reliable way to earn money, but also understands the danger behind the bracelet's power. He considers that such an ability could easily be mistaken for techniques used by the demonic cult. The bracelet closely resembles one of the Muriam Alliance's forbidden arts, and if discovered, his sect would be at risk. At that moment, the boy returns with the food, pulling him out of his thoughts. The protagonist's eyes brighten as he praises the meal prepared by the cook. As he eats, the child watches curiously, wondering why he has not left yet. The young disciple then asks if the master has heard the latest rumor circulating around. He explains that the Merchants Guild hosted a banquet to celebrate a rare elixir they acquired, but during the event, the item was stolen by a mysterious thief. The boy adds that the culprit must be highly skilled to have left no trace behind. Hearing this, the protagonist chokes on his food, knowing that he is the one responsible. The boy hurriedly offers him water, while the master composes himself and pretends nothing is wrong. The young man asks whether the Alliance has identified the culprit or detained anyone for the crime. He grows uneasy at the thought that an innocent person might have been blamed. The boy explains that the trail went cold too quickly and no suspects were found. Jin feels relieved but pretends to sympathize with the guildmaster for losing such a valuable item. The little disciple continues, saying that because of the incident, the banquet ended early, though another celebration will be held soon. When he hears that the next banquet is for the Iron Sword sect, the young man grows tense. The boy explains that the event is to celebrate their leader's 60th birthday. The protagonist remembers that this banquet occurred in his past life. He recalls the scene vividly, including a man lying on the ground during the event. In his memory, he sees his father's furious expression after being humiliated. He also remembers his own battered condition and the pain he endured. On that day, his father was forced to kneel and beg for forgiveness in front of everyone. He recalls shouting in desperation as he witnessed the entire ordeal. Worst of all, he knows that his father suffered humiliation because of him. Anger rises within him as he clenches his fist, determined to change the outcome this time. Because of this, he resolves to avoid the Iron Sword sect entirely. The protagonist suddenly stands and thanks the boy for both the meal and the information. He begins to leave, unwilling to let his father endure that humiliation again. With that resolve, the young man rushes out to carry out his plan.